Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Season 4, Episode 16, The Insecta Trifecta. Or Episode 17, sorry. This was an awesome episode. I thought it was really cool. The action, especially the ending fight scene, I really loved the ending fight scene. I was like, man, I kind of want them to use those grappling things in every episode now because they looked amazing. And of course, the location they had, of course, a construction site where they're like steel girders and stuff to you got a million different things to latch onto, but they don't really connect to any solid surfaces. It's just like a bunch of poles in the air, and then it allows for them to use that space in a very beautiful way. I thought it was like an amazing ending fight scene. I loved it, but the episode in general was really cool. I just want to throw this out there at the beginning. I'm glad Casey was in this because I mentioned in the last two episodes, it's like, oh, there's Casey in the background, and then he just didn't have anything for the past two episodes. So I was like, alright, I'm glad that we got to see Casey. Apparently, they can't have everybody in one episode because now that we finally got Casey, they had to take out Shinigami, which I thought was a little sad. I was waiting to see her show up, but I was like, oh man, I would have loved to have seen her. But it was really good. The action I really enjoyed. Huge focus on Raph in this episode. We also got to see not only visions of Dragon, also basically all of the insect and bug creatures that we've had in past seasons, but we also got to see Mona Lisa, and that was pretty cool. They didn't actually have the actors come back and say anything, which makes sense. I mean, it would have been literally like one or two lines or something, but it was cool to see her. Excuse me, and the fact that they even brought her up really surprised me. I thought for sure when they mentioned her, it would be one of those TV things where it's like, oh, she finally got mentioned, and then out of nowhere, like, oh, here she is, which actually wouldn't be that crazy. It just seems like it would be because it's not a new season, so I guess technically she was in the series like maybe 7 episodes ago or something like that, but that was it's almost half a year ago, it feels like. So it would have seemed really weird, but actually wouldn't have been that crazy if she did end up showing up so soon again. But we don't actually get to see her in person. Just Raph has these crazy visions, and he's like, it starts off with him eating the pizza, and it's like, oh, once you're on the bug planet, meh, nothing gets to you. But it turns out that that's not true. The little bugs, he doesn't have a fear of anymore, but giant, crazy bug creatures still really get to him, and of course, that, with Baxter Stockman being the main villain for this episode, that comes into play. So that was really cool. It was also nice getting to see Stockman actually have a big episode. I feel like he hasn't had one since he's turned into a mutant. To be totally honest, I can't remember the last time we saw a Stockman-focused episode. Like, it's been a super long time. And even episodes that don't really focus on them, when it's just like, oh, here are, the bad guys and stuff, Stockman is the last person to ever show up. Like, he does a little bit here and there, like, because he's the science character for the villains. So it's like, oh, he does this little thing, and that's it. So I was actually really happy to see that he was the main villain and he got a huge focus in this. Even though, with him being the main villain, I still felt like he didn't have that much focus. It was kind of interesting because it was still oddly shared between him and kind of the insect creatures that he created, which were very cool, especially the ant style looking creature that like could create clones of itself. When that first happened, I was like, that looks super freaking creepy and gross. And they would just crawl out of the I believe the back is the thorax, and I was like, man, that looks super freaking gross. And then the other guy just looked like a mutant to me. I thought he would look way cooler. That was like the one issue I had with his character, because it was like, oh, it's going to be like a beetle spider hybrid. And when he came out, I was like, I wouldn't know that. I mean, I guess I'd know the beetle thing, just because of the pincers at the top, but I didn't see anything that really looked like a spider on that. Like, he had like really thin legs and then little tiny claws at the end. But when Raph mentioned to everyone else, it was like, yeah, he has this crazy creature that looks like, that can clone itself, and then another one that's like some freaky spider beetle hybrid. I was like, how in the world would anyone be able to tell that? He looks like almost a bit like the trash mutant a little bit, and it's just like, he just looks like a globby mess with pincers. And I was like, oh, I was kind of hoping for something really cool to come out, and it just looked like a mutated mess. And I was like, oh, that's admittedly a little disappointing. With all the symmetry that spiders and beetles have, I was expecting something to come out that looked like really, really cool. And I was like, oh, it kind of just came out like a mutated mess, like everything else does. So I was like, that's a little disappointing to me. I was just hoping for something that looked cooler than that. But it was still really interesting. It didn't go the way that I thought, because I thought that the creature that he created, which I believe Mikey dubs Anthrax, unless that was supposed to be the cloning thing, I thought he was going to try to take over for Baxter, but they do actually end up staying together as a team, because I thought that he was going to try to, push Baxter out of the way and he'd be the boss, and then he and the cloning ant, they would kind of do their own thing together. But they actually do, stick together as a full team until Baxter ends up escaping and he leaves them behind, which I feel like that's going to come up in a later episode in the series. It might not be this season, but I feel like something's going to happen, and we might get that storyline where they team up against Stockman because they're mad that he, took off without him. And I just felt like, with them introducing these two characters, like, I feel like that's going to come back to bite Stockman in the butt that he took off after they got defeated. But really fun episode. Love the action in it. Like I said, the ending fight scene was really awesome. I liked the fight scene that they had at Karai's place. It just ended up being shorter than I expected because they went through another scene with Raph. And when you get to the end fight scene, it kind of makes a lot of sense because they're like flying all over the place. I'm like, it probably took forever to render that final fight scene. But it looked great. It reminded me a little bit of the episode when Leo was jumping around. It made me think of Attack on Titan. I was like, because they're, especially in this, because they're actually swinging around and stuff, and it's like the maneuver gear in Attack on Titan. So I was like, this is really cool, and they're flying through. My favorite scene was probably when they have Raph spin around and he goes through the middle and it's in slow motion like behind him, and he's spinning through and he like kicks one in the face and stuff, and I was like, this is a really great scene. Like, all of that was really cool. Another thing that I really love, this is a really small thing that you wouldn't really notice unless you saw it, but when they had the fight scene at Karai's place, when April was with the turtles, she had the full white eyes, like the ninja eye thing, and I was like, that's really awesome. She may have had that in the other episodes, but I don't believe she did, because I think I was looking for that and they didn't have it for her, so they had it in this episode when they all showed up once again. At the last minute, I would have loved if they made a reference to that again, where Karai is like, you guys just keep showing up at the last minute, but they didn't make a callback to that, which I thought would have been really perfect, because they do the exact same thing like in the last episode where she's fighting and stuff, but she does end up getting captured, which also her fight scene when she was by herself was cool too, because she used her mutant power. So they did a lot of cool new stuff that we don't get to see a ton of, because, excuse me, she didn't go like full snake mode where she's slithering around. She was still on her feet, but she was like, using her hands, or like, yeah, they're still her hands, I guess. Her hands is like, snake whips and stuff, and then when she gets hit with like the spider web, she kind of has to deal with that, but then she gets like launched into the sky because that dude was just like flipping people upside down constantly. But it was really cool to see April with the full white ninja eyes. I thought that was sweet. Like I said, all the action was really good. We got a bit of wise Master Splinter stuff. I loved his moment at the end where it was just super deep, and it's like, the saying meant nothing. It was just meant to show you that fear is nothing unless you give it power. I was like, man, that's just some deep stuff, Master Splinter style. So that was really awesome. And then, of course, we have the final scene, which I think everyone was kind of expecting this, as far as us getting, like, Super Shredder. This puts it to, like, a whole new level now, because he's full-on Mutant Shredder, because he has, the claws he can, or I guess, it would be claws and spikes as well. But when we have the ending scene where Stockman is freaking out, like, I have to report a failure to you and stuff, Shredder, wakes up. At first, I thought it was going to be simple. I thought it was going to be like, oh, he clenched his fist, so he's powerful enough to do that, and it's like, it's a sign of him coming back. And then it was like, oh, that's the simple thing. And then you can hear it. At first, you hear it before you see it, but then you see the claws at, like, the very bottom of the screen, and then it runs up his arm, and the two claws just shoot out at the end. I was like, that is freaking sweet. So I can't wait to see him up and running and really getting to see exactly how far this goes, because his mutation is fairly simple. Like, he can make blades come out of his body. He's kind of like the character Meryl from X-Men, if anyone knows who that is. But she can pull bones out of her body and use them as weapons. Or Kimimaro, if you watch Naruto. But I'm excited to see what they do with Shredder with that. And it, in one sense, it kind of makes me think of Super Shredder, just because the fact that he's on the mutagen in general instantly takes me to Super Shredder. But this kind of takes me to a different version of Super Shredder, and probably a cooler version. Of course, if you saw the movie, it was basically some wood fell on him, honestly, and he died. So obviously it'll be way more epic than that. And I'm really curious if he'll be able to like shoot the blades off of his body, or if they'll just be attached to him, or maybe if he can like physically pull them out and throw them. It's just something, and I feel like they might actually go that route, because otherwise he really wouldn't have anything super special. He'd just have the blades in his body. And with Shredder being Shredder in general, he already has enough defense, because even when he wears the full suit, he's fully armored up. Plus, he can hardly get touched anyway, because he's Shredder and he's always destroying the turtles. So I feel like they'd have to do it where he can like shoot the blades out of his body, or at least pull them out, or you know, they'll be doing something different. Obviously, it won't just be he's fighting normally and he makes a larger blade on his hand and stuff like that. It'll have to be like really epic. So maybe he won't even wear armor anymore, and it'll be straight up blades and stuff shooting out of his back. That I think would be great. Although I still want to see him in the outfit. But we're gonna get Mutant Shredder, and I'm super excited for that. And he's gonna be even more badass than he was before. And one of the big things I'm curious about is what's gonna happen next time he runs into Master Splinter. How's that fight gonna go? Because it won't be as easy as it was before. And normally they're fairly matched, and of course Splinter always comes out on top. So this, oddly enough, might even it out a little more, because Shredder always gets beat. But there's always some little circumstance that allows for one of them to win. Like the first time they fought, or maybe it was like the second time. It was during like the season 2 finale, I think, right when they were leaving the city, and Master Splinter like barely survived that because of all the craziness going on through the city. And if I remember right, he kind of got teamed up on as well, and some other stuff happened. All I can remember is how it ended, because he like fell through the ground because they're at a construction site. But there's always some little minor thing that allows one of them to win, and this will kind of keep it always edged in Shredder's favor. So I'm looking forward to what they do with it. Really loved the action in this episode. Great to see Casey get a focus. Great to see Stockman get a focus, because we won't have that. I don't know. We might have it again fairly soon, because they have it where early on Shredder mentions like, oh, the rest of my henchmen have become useless, and they're just gone in this episode, which is really weird to me. But Stockman, like I said, doesn't get a lot of focus, so it was really good to see him have an episode. Finally, after all this time, it was nice to see him have an episode. So he's got his little moment in this season. Probably won't have one for like another 2 or 3 seasons, but overall a really fun episode. Very excited for the next one. Hopefully it keeps going, because one of the big things about the show is that we get our couple of really epic episodes, and it's like, this happens and that happens. And this was sort of the filler episode, but at least it ended on something that was like really big, and it was also, it felt like it fit in line with the rest of the episodes. And it might be because they weren't doing something super random. They were still dealing with going up against Shredder, and the fact that they showed like he doesn't have the henchmen that he needs right now, and everyone's been useless. And they even threw Karai in there, like we still get to see what she's trying to do, where she tells them like, hey, you can't find them in the city, expand, go to New Jersey, go upstate, freaking, find them. So they put some of the, just enough elements in there of the main story arc to make this feel like less of a filler episode. So that also made it really freaking great. So hopefully it kind of keeps that train going, and it's more, main storyline stuff. And I doubt we'll get to see him up and running Shredder, at least in the next episode. But I would love that, because once he comes back, it's going to be pure madness. And I know he's going to go straight for Karai, and I highly doubt they'll kill Karai, but I think it's going to be a very, very tense episode when he's back and he goes to get his helmet and everything like that. Although I think she just has a copy of it anyway. I can't remember if it's his actual helmet, but either way, really great episode. Love the action. Nice focus on Raph. Nice to see Casey and Stockman, like I said. And I can't wait to see where we go now. We got full-on Mutant Shredder. He's getting in much better shape. I'm sure he'll be practicing before he actually goes out to use his new powers. But I can't freaking wait to see what they do with it. Of course, I would love to know what you guys thought about this episode. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And of course, with that sort of ending scene that we got with Shredder, I just want to know where you guys think that's gonna go. Like, what is? I would love to know what you guys think the first thing Shredder is gonna do. Because for me, it has to be that he's gonna go after Karai. And like I said, not counting him getting up and training and stuff with his new abilities, the first thing he does when he leaves that very nice looking house that he has, by the way, I didn't mention that before, but I love the way that house looks on the outside. I'm like, that just looks really cool to me. But I think his first thing is going to be, I'm going to go back to, my original hideout. I'm going to get my suit and everything. I'm going to go destroy Karai, and he'll find Shinigami. I think he's gonna find her and she'll try to do a move and he'll like just punch through that and destroy her or something crazy. Because that's a Shredder move. I feel like that's what's gonna happen. She's gonna be like, I got you now, and he's gonna be like, child's play, and just like wipe her out in one punch or something. And I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. But I think that'll be his first move. Like I said, though, I would love to know what you guys think Shredder's first move is going to be when he's up and running. And, of course, want to know what you guys thought about this episode. So, like I said, please comment below, let me know. And, of course, thanks for watching.